many of the grants you canceled were done so just because they were in states led by Democrats.
When truth becomes a moving target, the real cost isn't political, it's personal. For Americans between 30 and 65, those actively paying mortgages, raising families, running businesses, or planning retirement, the stakes are immediate and tangible. This argument is a must-watch for all American citizens.
From Florida, the ranking member of the subcommittee, for 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, one of the reasons that hardworking Americans are grappling with higher energy bills right now is what you did when you took office at the Department of Energy in canceling so many clean energy projects and grid reliability projects. When you took office, you killed over 350 new energy projects and threatened over 300 more with termination. You were sued because of this, and you lost in court because of it. I don't think it's gotten enough attention that many of the grants you canceled were done so just because they were in states led by Democrats. Is that fair in the United States of America? For you just simply to make a political decision to kill clean energy projects, increase electric bills simply for political purposes?
So the statement is false. All of the 2,240 decisions we made did not involve politics at all.
Mr. Secretary, let me show you. I'm sure you've seen this. This is the district court stipulation signed by your representatives of the Department of Energy in federal district court that stipulates a primary reason for the selection of which DOE grant termination decisions were included in the October 2025 notice tranche was whether the grantee was located in a blue state. This is signed by your attorneys, and it's of course it is true.
Read your words more carefully. We're included in the announcement, not in the decisions on the projects. If you want to make accusations, please be accurate.
Are you going, well, talk about accuracy. You just said that gas prices during the Biden administration were higher than they are now. They are not. Boy, tell my folks back in Florida that are pulling up to the gas pump at $4.29 today.
Average was over $5 during the Biden administration.
And it's so arbitrary. You all have inflicted such pain and damage, and you can try to bob and weave on all this. But when a federal district court calls you out for your illegal cancellation of energy grants, hopefully you're going back to the drawing board to say, we're now going to right the ship. For the 7 projects that prevailed, have you released the funds to those energy projects?
Of course, we're appealing the decision there.
You're appealing the decision.
We cannot appeal it yet because we don't have a final decision on it. But look.
So then what about the other?
Do you want an answer or do you just want to speak?
Well, you said you're appealing the decision. So that means that as of right now, you're not. What about the other hundreds of grants to stabilize the grid, to help lower costs, to bring on new clean energy, cheaper energy technologies? Do you intend now, since the courts have said you acted illegally and arbitrarily, to actually restore those grants that were appropriated by the Congress?
Of course, we follow the law, always will and always have. But what you call clean energy, it's exactly the subsidies on wind, solar, and batteries that drove the 30% rise in electricity prices during the Biden administration and that drove the rise in electricity prices last year. Because the only things that could be permitted were energy sources that only work some of the time, and you don't know when they work.
Mr.
That is a surefire way to raise electricity prices,
think about,
and it did.
You're going to hear from other colleagues today about canceled projects that states and communities were relying on to help lower energy bills, and now you have said, no, we think it's more expensive to double down on costly, polluting plants. You know, the unabated burning of oil and gas and coal also has an outsized cost and impact. You can't turn a blind eye to the rising cost of the heating climate, and you continue to kind of bury your head in the sand on that. And you go back to all of these businesses that had fully permitted and even begun constructed projects. How does the private sector ever trust you again when you arbitrarily and illegally cancel these projects? How do you rebuild that trust?
They weren't arbitrary, and the legality are being disputed. You mentioned the rising costs of a warming climate. Over the last 35 years, insured losses as a percent of global GDP
I know insurance
have
in
declined
Florida.
20%.
I know insurance in Florida.
They've declined, not risen.
Yep.
The generally's time has expired.
I'll yield back, Mike.
What stands out in this exchange isn't just disagreement, it's the competing realities being presented with equal confidence. One side frames the issue as a politically motivated dismantling of clean energy progress, while the other dismisses that claim as categorically false and pivots to economic pain tied to prior policies. Both lean on selective facts, legal interpretations, and economic snapshots, but neither fully engages the deeper uncertainty facing Americans. If the same set of events can produce two entirely different truths, how is the average citizen supposed to make informed decisions about their future? Businesses hesitate, investors pull back, communities that were counting on jobs, infrastructure, or lower energy costs are left in limbo. Whether the cancellations were justified or not, the inconsistency itself becomes a hidden tax, one paid in uncertainty, higher costs, and delayed progress. Beneath the surface, this isn't just about energy policy, it's about trust in systems that are supposed to be stable. When projects are approved, funded, and even underway, only to be halted amid legal battles and political transitions, the ripple effects go far beyond Washington. There's also a deeper sleight of hand happening in how the debate is framed. Instead of addressing long-term trade-offs, like affordability versus sustainability, or short-term relief versus long-term resilience, the conversation gets trapped in point scoring. Gas prices today versus yesterday, court rulings versus appeals, percentages versus anecdotes. Meanwhile, the structural questions go largely untouched. What energy mix actually stabilizes costs over decades? What policies survive changes in administration? And most importantly, who bears the cost when political strategies shift midstream? For Americans between 30 and 65, those actively paying mortgages, raising families, running businesses, or planning retirement, the stakes are immediate and tangible. Energy bills aren't abstract. Job markets tied to infrastructure aren't theoretical. What this exchange ultimately reveals is less about who is right and more about how fragile policy outcomes become when they are entangled with political identity. The real question is which argument sounds more convincing in the moment, but which approach leads to a system that is predictable, accountable, and durable enough to serve citizens long after the debate ends.